Hello, welcome back to Animated Literacy. This is lesson number 82 from the Story Song and Action Book. In this lesson, in just a bit, we're going to be learning about Joy and her toy Tin Man and the squeaky joints that she had to use an oil can to squirt oil on them so they would stop making their noises. Before we do that, we're going to go back and do a bit of reviewing. Our last character that we met was Quentin Quayle, and we learned that Quentin Quayle is on Queen Quenby's football team. And one of his jobs on the football team is to throw quick passes with the football. So Quentin's sound is the sound that we make while we're pretending to throw a pass with the football. So pretend to pick up a football, move it back behind your head, and as you bring it forward like this, go quah for quarterbacking, because he is the quarterback. So let's practice his sound just a bit. Before we do that, let's go back and review our bubblegum song that we learned in an earlier lesson. So let's warm your muscles up and do this after me. Ready? Point to yourself. I put the penny in the gum slot. I put the penny in the gum slot. See the gum go round. See the gum go round. Now point yourself again. Sing. I get the gum. I get the gum, you get the wrapper, you get the wrapper, 'cause I put the penny in the gum slot. Now let's try it with Quentin, ready? And then after we do Quentin, we'll start switching to some others. So be a quarterback, throw the football, ready? Quai quit the quenny in the quat. Quai quit the quenny in the quat. Well, how does Timmy Tiger sing it? Well, he's tickling. Tea the tum-toe town, tea the tum-toe town. How does Rosie sing it? Rye-rit the rum, rye-rit the rum. And if Timmy is in front of Rosie, you can tickle with one hand and ride with the other. Try-trit the trenny, try-trit the trenny. 'Cause, lay your head on your lemon leaves, lie-lit the Lenny in the lum lot. Lie-lit the Lenny in the lum lot. How does Sadie Seal sing that? Sigh-soot the Sanny in the sum-sot. So surfing, sigh-soot the Sanny in the sum-sot. What would happen if Sadie is in front of Lizzie? Slee the slum slow slound. Slee the slum slow slound. And if Nellie's singing it, how does it sound? Nine at the num. Nine at the num. And if we put Sadie in front of Nellie, what do we have? Surfing and nibbling. Sny snut the snenny. Sny snut the snenny. And if we have Gilda gliding, 'cause Guy got the genny in the... What happens if I put an R after G? Grygrit the granny in the grum grot. Grygrit the granny in the grum grot. Now when we get really good with doing it with our pictures to remind us of the sound, then we're going to start to do away with the pictures. So here's our flashcards, and you can see the pictures getting very light, but the letter is nice and big and bold. So if Baby Barnaby's singing it, how does he sing it as he's bowing? Bye but the Benny in the bum bot. Bye but the Benny in the bum bot. How's Timmy singing it again? Tea the tum-toe town tickling. Tea the tum-toe town. Moving that magic mop. Mime at the mum. Mime at the mum. Surfing. Soos at the sapper. Soos at the sapper. And now we have surfing and moving a magic mop. 'Cause Smy smut the smenny in the smum smot. Smy smut the smenny in the smum smot. Now when you get really good, you can do away with the pictures altogether and just do it with the letters, which is what you're doing when you're figuring out words in a book. So show me that magic mop again. My mut the many in the mum mot. See the sum so sound. What happens when we put these two together? Smy smut the smum and toot the tapper, 'cause Sty stood the stanny in the stum stot. Sty stood the stanny in the stum stot. Okay, well, after we learned about Quentin Quayle, we drew some pictures. And here were the pictures that we drew together. We drew a picture of a queen, of a quail, and of a quill, the feather that people wrote with for over 1,000 years before we had our modern pens. And then on my page, I went back and wrote some things about my pictures and colored the pictures, so I hope you tried to do that. And I wrote, "The quirky old queen waves." And here she is waving, and that's something that queens do a lot of. And then next to the quail, I wrote, "A quick quail sings." And we learned about the song the quail sings, and that the queen likes to sing along with her pet quail. And we learned that this red quill writes, because people used to write with a feather called a quill. And then down here we had ink, so you have to take the feather, dip it into the ink, and then you write with it. When you run out of ink, you dip it back in again. And that says the black ink dries. And then just like you can do on your page, I wrote a sentence about my pictures, and mine is kind of a long sentence. It says, "This quirky old queen likes to sing with her pet quail." So that's how my page turned out. We also then put it into a song, and the song we used was "Over in the Meadow." So if you have this page still with you, I got your reading finger, put it here, and sing along with me. Over in the castle by a pond in the sun. Again, over in the castle by a pond in the sun lived an old mother queen and her pet quail one. Lived an old mother queen and her pet quail one. And what does she want the quail to do? "Sing," said the queen. "I sing," said the quail. So they sang and were happy by the pond in the sun. So what did we need in our picture then? We needed the castle where they live, the pond that is by the castle, the queen, her pet quail, and she's out here in the sun. And then I wrote some things about my pictures, just like I did on the page where we did our drawing. Today, we're going to be learning about a girl named Joy. And so I'm going to call her Joy today. And Joy has two older brothers who both go to school. But Joy is too small to go to school. So while her brothers are at school, she plays. And then when they come home with their homework and they're working on their homework, they can't play with her because they have to get their homework done, and she keeps playing. Her favorite toy to play with is a Tin Man. And the reason she likes this toy so much is her Tin Man comes from the book The Wizard of Oz, that is her favorite story. And Joy's just starting to read a few words. So whenever she can, and whenever her brother's her homework is finished, she tries to get them to read to her the story of the Wizard of Oz. And her favorite part in the story of the Wizard of Oz comes where they find the Tin Man. And the Tin Man can't move. Why? Because his joints are all rusty. So they get out an oil can and they oil his joints. And when he can finally move and talk, what does he say? He says that he wants to go see the Wizard of Oz with them because he doesn't have a heart. And he wants to be able to love people and be kind to everyone. And he says, you need a heart to do that. So would you take me with you to see the Wizard of Oz? And so that's just what they do. So when Joy plays with her toy, she likes to take and move his arms like this, and his head can move around like this, and his legs can move a little bit. And when her toy was new, it was very quiet when they moved the toy. But later, when Joy began moving his joints, they got so old they began to squeak. And so she would move, and here's his shoulder joint, and it would go eek, squeak, squawk, and make these horrible noises. Well, the noises were so loud that her brothers came to her and said, Joy, we can't do our homework with all that noise. You need to take your toy and go out and play with it in the garage. So Joy went out into the garage. And as she was playing with her toy, she found some aluminum foil. Aluminum foil is kind of shiny like this. And if I wiggle it, it makes noises like that. And wrapped up in the aluminum foil was an old oil can, just almost like the one from the story The Wizard of Oz. So she thought, well, that worked in my story, so how's it going to do if I do it in real life? So she took the oil can, and on this old oil can, you push on the bottom to get the oil to squirt out of the spout. So she started moving her thumbs up and down like this on the oil can. And when she did, oil came out. So she pointed the oil at his shoulder joint, his elbow joint, at his wrist, at his knees, at his hips, and at his feet, and at his neck, and she oiled all of the joints on her toy Tin Man. Well, when she was done oiling the joints, she moved them, and her Tin Man didn't make any noises anymore. So she thought, maybe I can take it back into the house. So Joy sneaked back into the house with her Tin Man, went off in a corner, and started playing with it. Well, all of a sudden, her brothers looked over, saw her playing with her toy, and there wasn't any noise. And they went, Joy, what did you do to stop all that noise from your noisy toy Tin Man? And she showed them the oil can and how she oiled the joints. And they said, well, can we play with him when we're finished with our homework? So they kept finishing their homework. When they were all done, they went over and played with Joy's Tin Man. And they decided to make the squeaks for him that he didn't make anymore. So when Joy moved his arm, the brothers went squeak squawk. When she moved his head, the brothers went squeak squawk. And so now whenever Joy's toy starts to make those noisy squeaky sounds, Joy gets out the oil can and she oils the squeaks. So whenever you see our toy Tin Man, or you see our picture of Joy, or you see her letters, O-Y or O-I, I want you to think about how she oils those squeaks. Pretend to pick up an old-fashioned can of oil, or here's one that's not quite as old, but it's still kind of an old can, and you still pump your thumbs up and down. So hold your hand like this, pump your thumbs up and down, and go, oi. Can you do that again? Oi. Now this is one of my favorite ones for a couple reasons. When I was first writing the stories for animated literacy, I was teaching in first grade. And when it came to the oi sound, I couldn't think of any actions to have my kids do. Well, one of my first graders looked up at me and he says, Mr. Stone, I have a squeaky bike. And when my bike squeaks, I get out an oil can and I oil it like this. And so that became our action that we used for oi. But I still didn't have a story yet. And the reason I'm telling you this is if we listen to authors and we learn how they write their stories, then we can do very similar kinds of things, and you want to be able to write lots of stories. So now I had the action, but I didn't have a story. Then we're driving along in the car, and the news comes on the radio, and they tell us that The Wizard of Oz is celebrating, the movie The Wizard of Oz is celebrating its 50th anniversary at that time. The book is much older than that, so the movie came much later. So I thought, oh, that's what I want to use for my story. And so that's where the story that I just told you came from, was from a first grader in my classroom telling me his bike had squeaks, and from the radio telling me that the Wizard of Oz movie was 50 years old. So now let's take and let's put that into one of our foods. Here's a tomato. How many syllables are in tomato? Tomato. So if we put oi in all three of those syllables, what's it going to sound like? Toy, moi, toy. Can you say that? Toy, moi, toy. And if we put it into our yam with just one syllable, what's the yam going to be? Toim. And if we put toim and toy, moi, toy into apples and bananas, how is it going to sound? Joy likes to oit, 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 yoims and toy moi toys again. Joy likes to oit, 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 yoims and toy moi toys. So you can put that into lots of different foods that we have been playing with. So now let's learn the song to go along with Joy's toy. So pretend like you have a Tin Man and you're moving his joints like this, and sing this back to me. While playing with an old toy, while playing with an old toy. Now show me how horrible those noises were. Joy was making noises, Joy was making noises. Then she found an oil can, then she found an oil can. Out went the squeakies, out went the squeakies. Now let's see how we're going to spell the sound. First we're going to use an O and an I. So how do you make an O with your fingers and hands? How do you make an I? I'm going to make mine this way. O, I, O, I. And sing this back to me. O, I is for oiling squeaks. O, I is for oiling squeaks. Now we're going to make O and Y. So I'm going to make my O just like I just did. And my Y, I'll put my hands together like this and out like this, okay? O, Y is for Joy's toy. O, Y is for Joy's toy. That's the way the noises go. That's the way the noises go. Oil stops the squeakies. Oil stops the squeakies. Let's try that again. Ready? While playing with an old toy, while playing with an old toy, Joy was making noises, Joy was making noises. Then she found an oil can, then she found an oil can. Out went the squeakies, out went the squeakies. O, I is for oiling squeaks. O, I is for oiling squeaks. O, Y is for Joy's toy. O, Y is for Joy's toy. That's the way the noises go. That's the way the noises go. Oil stops the squeakies. Oil stops the squeakies. Okay, let's see how we can do with that song with our recording. So let me find a song here real quickly, and then we'll sing it and I'll point to the words and you show me the sounds. Okay. So here's Joy's song, and I'll point to the words and you see if you can do the gestures and sing along. Here we go.
While playing with an old toy, Joy was making noises. Then she found an oil can. Out went the squeakies. O, I is for oiling squeaks. O, Y is for Joy's toy. That's the way the noises go. Oil stops the squeakies.
Okay, so now when you get your picture of Joy and her toy, think about, do you have something at home that makes horrible noises that you don't like? Is it a washing machine? Is it a blender? Is it a lawnmower? Maybe it's a weed whacker if you have to go out and cut the weeds in your yard. What kind of noise do you not like? Do you have a favorite toy that you like to play with? Where do you play with that toy? Do you share it with somebody? Do you have brothers who are older than you or younger than you that are kind of like in our story for Joy's toy? So I want you to think about what you like to play with, what kind of noises you don't like, what you do to prevent those kinds of noises, and who in your family you might share a toy Tin Man with. Now in our next lesson we're going to be drawing a picture of a Tin Man, And this is another reason why I really like this one. So I want to show you some of the pictures that my kindergarten students drew of their Tin Man. So we'll be drawing some of these in our next lesson. So here's one picture, and I want you to notice how they're all similar, but they're all different. And so none of them look quite like mine, and none of them look quite like the pictures from the other kids in the classroom, but they all look great. And most of the time, I find that I like the pictures that my children in my classroom draw better than I draw. It seems like for some reason they have more expression and more personality than the pictures that I draw. So I think drawing is just a really neat kind of activity, and I hope you're noticing just how different each of these pictures is. But they're all special. They're all wonderful, even though they don't all look exactly the same. So when you join me next time, we'll do the lesson just like we did where my kids drew these pictures, and you can draw your very own picture of a toy Tin Man. So I hope you enjoyed that lesson, and I hope to see you in our next lesson where we'll draw the toy Tin Man, and we'll also draw some other things that have Joy's oi sound. What's the sound? Oi! So I hope to see you then.